Victoria stood at the edge of the yacht, the cold ocean wind whipping through her hair. Behind her she could hear footsteps. 2 sets of footsteps. Her husband Daniel and her best friend Rachel were walking toward her. She knew what was about to happen. She had heard them planning it just 3 days ago. But she pretended not to know. She smiled and turned around. "The view is beautiful tonight," Victoria said, touching her pregnant belly. Daniel smiled back, but his eyes were cold. "Yes, it is. Perfect night for a celebration." Then, without warning, they rushed at her. 4 hands pushed hard against her chest. Victoria felt herself falling backward, the dark water rushing up to meet her. She heard Rachel laugh as she hit the ocean. But what Daniel and Rachel did not know was that Victoria was ready. Would they get away with murder, or was this billionaire wife about to teach them the biggest lesson of their lives? 3 weeks earlier, Victoria Harrison had been living what seemed like a perfect life. She was one of the richest women in Lagos, owning Harrison Industries, the biggest shipping company in Nigeria. She lived in a beautiful mansion in Lekki with her husband Daniel and was 5 months pregnant with their first child. That Tuesday evening, Victoria came home early from a business meeting. She had a headache and decided to rest. As she walked upstairs toward the bedroom, she heard voices coming from inside. She recognized them immediately, Daniel and Rachel. Rachel had been Victoria's best friend since university. They had built their careers together, shared secrets, and supported each other through everything. Victoria trusted her completely. She was about to open the door when she heard Daniel say something that made her freeze. "We push her off the yacht during the anniversary trip," Daniel said. "The water is deep. No one will find her body." Victoria's hand stopped on the doorknob. Her heart began to race. "And then Harrison Industries becomes yours," Rachel replied. "We'll finally have everything." Victoria felt like the floor was disappearing beneath her feet. She pressed her ear closer to the door, barely breathing. "What about the baby?" Rachel asked. Daniel laughed coldly. "It dies with her. Once Victoria is gone, no one can challenge my right to the company. Her father is old and weak. The board will accept me as the new chairman." Victoria backed away from the door slowly, her whole body shaking. She walked quickly to her private study and locked the door behind her. She sat down in her chair, placing both hands on her pregnant belly. Tears filled her eyes, but she forced them back. She could not break down now. She had to think clearly. Her life and her baby's life depended on it. Then she remembered something important. 6 months ago, she had installed hidden audio recording devices throughout the house for security purposes. She had almost forgotten about them. Victoria opened her laptop with trembling fingers and accessed the security system. She found today's recordings and played them back. Every word was there. Crystal clear. Perfect evidence of their murder plot. She downloaded the audio files onto 3 separate flash drives and hid them in different locations. Then she picked up her phone. Her first call was to Barrister Michael, her lawyer for the past 12 years. He had helped her build Harrison Industries and knew every detail of her business and personal life. "Barrister Michael," she said, keeping her voice steady. "I need to see you immediately. It's urgent. Life or death." "I'll be there in 30 minutes, he replied, hearing the seriousness in her voice. Next, she called Detective Paul at the Lagos State Police headquarters. He was a trusted friend of her late mother and had always told Victoria to call him if she ever needed help. "Detective Paul, this is Victoria Harrison," she said. "My husband is planning to kill me. I have proof. I need your help." Would they believe her, or would Daniel succeed in his evil plan? Within 2 hours, Victoria's study had become a secret war room. Barrister Michael sat across from her, listening to the audio recordings with a dark expression on his face. Detective Paul stood by the window, his arms crossed, shaking his head in disbelief. "This is clear evidence of conspiracy to commit murder," Detective Paul said. "We can arrest them right now." Victoria shook her head firmly. "No. Not yet. If you arrest them now, they will just deny everything. They will say the recording is fake or that they were joking. Daniel has money and connections. He will hire the best lawyers in Lagos." Barrister Michael nodded slowly. "She's right. We need more than audio. We need them to actually attempt the murder. We need to catch them in the act." Detective Paul looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Harrison, you're asking us to let them try to kill you. That's extremely dangerous." Victoria placed her hand on her belly and looked him straight in the eye. "I'm not asking. I'm telling you this is what we're going to do. My baby and I will survive this, and those two will pay for what they planned." The room fell silent. Both men could see the steel in Victoria's eyes. This was not a woman who would run away or hide. This was a woman ready to fight. All right, Detective Paul finally said. But we do this my way. I'll bring in a private investigator named Mr. Tony. He's the best in the business. He'll handle the surveillance and the rescue operation. And I'll prepare all the legal documents, Barrister Michael added. Divorce papers, restraining orders, and corporate protection documents. The moment this is over, we move fast to protect your company. Victoria nodded. Good. Daniel thinks our anniversary yacht trip is in 2 weeks. He doesn't know that I know. So we have 2 weeks to prepare everything. Over the next 14 days, Victoria became an actress. Every morning she woke up and smiled at Daniel. She kissed him goodbye when he left for work. She had dinner with him and Rachel, laughing at their jokes, pretending everything was normal. But inside she was preparing for war. Detective Paul and Mr. Tony worked secretly to set up the rescue operation. They contacted the Nigerian Navy and arranged for officers to be positioned near the yacht route. They got special permission to use naval vessels for the rescue mission. They also gave Victoria a special life jacket. It looked like a regular thin vest, but it was filled with advanced flotation technology. She could wear it under her dress and no one would notice. Mr. Tony installed tiny cameras on the yacht. He also placed a GPS tracker in Victoria's watch so they could find her the moment she hit the water. Barrister Michael prepared a mountain of legal documents. He investigated Daniel's activities and discovered something shocking. Daniel had been stealing money from Harrison Industries for over 2 years. He had embezzled over 50 million naira and hidden it in secret bank accounts. This gives us even more ammunition, Michael told Victoria. He's not just a murderer. He's also a thief. Victoria felt her anger growing stronger every day. But she kept it hidden. She kept smiling. She kept pretending. Finally the day arrived. The anniversary trip. Daniel had arranged everything perfectly. A private yacht, a route that would take them far from shore, a crew he had personally selected and probably bribed. As Victoria stepped onto the yacht that morning, wearing her hidden life jacket and GPS watch, she looked at Daniel and Rachel. They were both smiling at her with fake love in their eyes. "Happy anniversary, darling," Daniel said, kissing her cheek. Victoria smiled back. "Happy anniversary." But in her heart, she was thinking, "Tonight, your life ends and mine begins again." Would the plan work or would something go terribly wrong? The yacht moved smoothly through the calm waters off the coast of Lagos. The sun was setting, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink. Victoria stood on the deck, pretending to enjoy the view while her heart pounded in her chest. Daniel brought her a glass of juice. "For you and the baby," he said with a smile. Victoria took it but didn't drink. She had stopped eating or drinking anything Daniel gave her 2 weeks ago. She simply held the glass and looked out at the ocean. Rachel came up beside her, linking her arm through Victoria's. "This is so beautiful. I'm so happy we could celebrate with you too." Victoria wanted to push her away. She wanted to scream at both of them. But instead she smiled. "I'm glad you're here. You're my best friend." The words tasted like poison in her mouth, but she said them anyway. As the sky grew darker, Daniel suggested they go to the front of the yacht to see the stars. Victoria's pulse quickened. This was it. This was the moment they had planned. She touched the hidden life jacket under her dress to make sure it was secure. She felt her watch on her wrist, knowing that Detective Paul and Mr. Tony were tracking her location at that very moment. "That sounds lovely," Victoria said, her voice steady. She walked to the front of the yacht with Daniel and Rachel following close behind. The water below was dark and deep. The yacht crew was nowhere to be seen. Daniel had probably sent them away or paid them to disappear. Victoria stood at the edge, looking out at the endless ocean. This was the same spot from her nightmare. The same spot where they planned to end her life. Behind her, she heard them move closer. She could feel their presence. Her muscles tensed, ready. "The view is beautiful tonight," Victoria said, touching her pregnant belly. Daniel smiled back, but his eyes were cold. "Yes, it is. Perfect night for a celebration." Then it happened. Her hands pushed hard against her back. Victoria felt herself flying forward, falling through the air. She heard Rachel laugh, a cruel, happy sound. Then she hit the water. The ocean was cold and dark. Victoria went under, the water closing over her head. For a moment, panic tried to take over. But she forced herself to stay calm. She activated the hidden life jacket. Immediately, it inflated, pulling her back to the surface. She gasped for air, her head breaking through the waves. Above her, she could hear Daniel shouting. She fell. Victoria fell overboard. His voice sounded panicked, but Victoria knew it was fake. He was acting for the yacht crew, pretending to be a worried husband. Victoria floated in the water, her life jacket keeping her safe. She looked around and saw exactly what she was hoping to see, lights in the distance. Naval vessels approaching fast. Within minutes, strong hands were pulling her out of the water. Nigerian Navy officers wrapped her in blankets and checked her vital signs. "Are you all right, Mrs. Harrison?" one officer asked. Victoria nodded, shivering but alive. "I'm fine. The baby is fine. Did you get everything on camera?" "Every second," the officer confirmed. "The cameras on the yacht recorded everything. We have clear footage of them pushing you." Victoria smiled for the first time in weeks. A real smile. "Good. Now take me somewhere safe. And make sure Daniel and Rachel think I'm dead." The naval vessel turned off its lights and moved away quietly. On the yacht, Daniel and Rachel stood at the edge, looking down at the dark water where Victoria had disappeared. "Is she gone?" Rachel whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, she's gone. No one can survive that water. It's too cold, too deep." Rachel hugged him and they both smiled in the darkness. They thought they had won. But what they didn't know was that their real punishment was just beginning. The next morning, news channels across Nigeria exploded with the story. "Billionaire Victoria Harrison missing at sea," read the headlines. "Pregnant business mogul falls from yacht during anniversary celebration." Daniel stood in front of the cameras outside his mansion, his face the perfect picture of grief. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he spoke to reporters. "My wife, my beautiful Victoria, she just wanted to see the stars," he said, his voice breaking. "One moment she was there and the next, she was gone. I tried to save her. I jumped in after her, but the water was so dark. I couldn't find her. It was all lies, but he delivered them perfectly." Rachel stood beside him, also crying, playing the role of the devastated best friend. "Victoria was like a sister to me," she sobbed. "I can't believe she's gone. And the baby, that poor baby." The media ate it up. Social media filled with messages of sympathy. People left flowers outside the mansion gates. The whole country mourned for Victoria Harrison. But while Nigeria cried, Daniel and Rachel celebrated in private. That night, in Daniel's study, they drank expensive champagne and laughed. "You were brilliant today," Rachel said, kissing him. "Everyone believes you're the grieving husband." Daniel smiled and pulled out some papers. "In 3 days, there will be an emergency board meeting at Harrison Industries. Victoria's father is too old and too heartbroken to fight. The board will vote me in as the new chairman." "And then?" Rachel asked. "And then we sell the company piece by piece. We take the money and disappear. Maybe London. Maybe Dubai. Anywhere but here." They clinked their glasses together, celebrating what they thought was their victory. Meanwhile, in a secret location in Abuja, Victoria was very much alive. She stayed in a safe house provided by the police with round-the-clock protection. Detective Paul and Mr. Tony visited her every day with updates. "Daniel has already contacted the company lawyers," Mr. Tony reported. "He's moving fast to take control of Harrison Industries. He's also been accessing your bank accounts." Victoria sat in a comfortable chair, her hand on her belly. The baby kicked, strong and healthy. "Let him. The more he steals, the more evidence we have against him." Barrister Michael spread out documents on the table. "We've been tracking his movements for the past 2 weeks. Daniel has embezzled over 70 million naira from the company. He's been creating fake contracts, paying fake suppliers, and pocketing the money." "And Rachel?" Victoria asked. "She's been helping him," Detective Paul said. "She used her position as your friend to access company files and financial records. She gave Daniel inside information. They've been planning this for at least 2 years." Victoria felt her anger burn hot, but she kept her voice calm. "How much longer do we wait?" "The emergency board meeting is in 3 days, Barrister Michael said. "That's when Daniel will try to officially take over the company. That's when we strike." Victoria nodded. "Good. I want him to feel like he's won. I want him to think he's gotten away with everything. And then I want to watch his face when I walk into that boardroom." The next few days were torture for Victoria. She watched the news coverage of her own death. She saw Daniel give interviews looking sad and broken. She saw Rachel organize a memorial service at their church. Victoria's father, Mr. Edward Harrison, appeared on television looking 10 years older. His daughter's disappearance had broken his heart. He could barely speak without crying. Seeing her father's pain was the hardest part. Victoria wanted to call him to tell him she was alive. But Detective Paul insisted it was too dangerous. "If your father knows, he might accidentally give it away," Paul explained. Daniel is watching him closely. We can't take that risk. So Victoria waited. And planned. And prepared for the moment when she would return from the dead. On the morning of the emergency board meeting, Daniel put on his most expensive suit. He looked at himself in the mirror and smiled. Today Harrison Industries would become his. Today he would be a billionaire. He drove to the company headquarters in Victoria Island. Rachel sitting beside him in the car. Are you nervous? She asked. Daniel laughed. Nervous? I'm excited. This is everything we've worked for. But what Daniel didn't know was that in another car, just a few blocks away, Victoria was also heading to that same meeting. Would Daniel's plan succeed, or was he about to face the shock of his life? The boardroom at Harrison Industries was filled with serious faces. 15 board members sat around the long table, all dressed in black out of respect for Victoria. Her father, Mr. Edward Harrison, sat at the head of the table looking pale and tired. Daniel entered the room with a somber expression, Rachel walking behind him. He shook hands with each board member, accepting their condolences with practiced sadness. Thank you all for coming during this difficult time, Daniel said as he took his seat. I know Victoria would have wanted the company to continue strong, even in her absence. Mr. Edward wiped tears from his eyes. My daughter built this company from nothing. She was brilliant, dedicated, and strong. Losing her and my grandchild? I don't know how to go on. Daniel reached over and squeezed the old man's hand. Sir, Victoria would want you to be strong. And she would want Harrison Industries to survive. That's why I'm prepared to step in as chairman. I know the business. I know her vision. I can keep her legacy alive. Several board members nodded. It seemed reasonable. Daniel was Victoria's husband. He had been involved in the company for years. Who better to take over? The company secretary stood up with documents in her hands. We're here to vote on an emergency appointment. Mr. Daniel Harrison has requested to be named acting chairman of Harrison Industries, effective immediately. I second the motion, one board member said. All in favor? The secretary asked. Hands started to rise around the table. Daniel felt his heart racing with excitement. He was seconds away from controlling a billionaire empire. But then the boardroom doors suddenly burst open. Everyone turned to look. A woman walked in, followed by Barrister Michael, Detective Paul, and 4 police officers. The room fell completely silent. Several people gasped. One board member dropped his pen. Mr. Edward Harrison stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Because the woman who just walked in was Victoria Harrison. Alive, pregnant, and furious. I believe you're voting on my company, Victoria said, her voice cold and clear. Without asking the actual owner. Daniel's face went white. His mouth opened but no sound came out. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. Rachel screamed and jumped up from her chair. No. You're dead. You drowned. We saw you fall. You mean you saw yourselves push me? Victoria corrected, walking toward the table. Yes, I fell. But I didn't drown. Surprise. Mr. Edward rushed to his daughter, tears streaming down his face. Victoria. My baby. You're alive. Victoria hugged her father tightly. I'm sorry, Papa. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you. But I had to catch them in the act. Daniel finally found his voice. This is insane. Victoria, what are you talking about? You fell off the yacht. It was an accident. We tried to save you. Victoria smiled, but it was not a kind smile. An accident? Really? Should we watch the video? She nodded to Detective Paul. He set up a laptop and projector. Within seconds, footage began playing on the boardroom wall. The video showed everything. Daniel and Rachel walking up behind Victoria on the yacht. The two of them exchanging a look. Then, clear as day, both of them pushing Victoria off the yacht with all their strength. Rachel's laugh could be heard clearly on the audio. The boardroom erupted in shocked voices. Several board members stood up, pointing at Daniel and Rachel in horror. You tried to murder her, one board member shouted. And the baby, another added. Daniel stood up, panic on his face. That video is fake. Someone edited it. Victoria, please, you have to believe me. Sit down, Mr. Harrison, Detective Paul said firmly. Or should I say Mr. Williams? Because Daniel Harrison isn't even your real name, is it? Daniel froze. Rachel grabbed his arm, her face full of fear. Barrister Michael opened his briefcase and pulled out thick folders of documents. Would you like to tell the board about the 73 million naira you've stolen from this company? Or should I? Daniel collapsed back into his chair, all the color drained from his face. Around the boardroom table, the board members stared at him with disgust and shock. Barrister Michael laid out document after document on the table. For the past 2 years, Daniel has been creating fake supplier contracts. He invented companies that don't exist, wrote checks to them from Harrison Industries, and deposited the money into secret accounts. He slid papers across to the board members. Here are the bank statements. Here are the fake contracts. Here is the evidence of massive embezzlement. Daniel has stolen over 73 million naira from this company. And Rachel helped him every step of the way, Detective Paul added, looking at the woman who had pretended to be Victoria's best friend. She used her access to company files to give Daniel inside information. She helped him forge signatures and create false documents. Rachel started crying, but these tears were different from the fake ones she had cried on television. These were tears of fear. We also have audio recordings, Victoria said, her voice steady and strong. Recordings of you two planning my murder. Would you like to hear them? She nodded, and her voice from weeks ago filled the boardroom through speakers. The recording was crystal clear. Daniel's voice. We push her off the yacht during the anniversary trip. The water is deep. No one will find her body. Rachel's voice. And then Harrison Industries becomes yours. We'll finally have everything. Daniel's voice. What about the baby? His cold response. It dies with her. Once Victoria is gone, no one can challenge my right to the company. The recording stopped. The silence in the room was heavy and painful. Mr. Edward Harrison, Victoria's father, walked slowly toward Daniel. His hands were shaking with rage. You tried to kill my daughter. You tried to kill my grandchild. You pretended to comfort me while I cried, knowing you were the one who pushed her into the ocean. Daniel looked up at him but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Victoria pulled out a large envelope from her bag. Daniel, before the police take you away, you need to sign something. Barrister Michael opened the envelope and pulled out divorce papers. He placed them on the table in front of Daniel with a pen. Sign them, Victoria said firmly. Sign them right now. Daniel's hands shook as he picked up the pen. He didn't even read the papers. He just signed his name and pushed them back across the table. Good, Victoria said coldly. Now you're not just a criminal. You're also my ex-husband. Detective Paul stepped forward with his officers. Daniel Williams, Rachel Okonkwo, you are both under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and embezzlement. The officers pulled out handcuffs and moved toward them. Rachel screamed and tried to back away, but there was nowhere to run. Within seconds, both of them were handcuffed. This isn't over. Daniel shouted as the officers pulled him toward the door. You can't prove everything. My lawyers will. Your lawyers will do nothing, Barrister Michael interrupted. We have video evidence, audio recordings, bank statements, fake contracts, and witness testimony. You're finished. The officers dragged Daniel and Rachel out of the boardroom. Their shouts faded as they were taken down to the police cars waiting outside. The board members sat in stunned silence for a moment. Then one by one they stood up and applauded Victoria. Some had tears in their eyes. Mr. Edward pulled his daughter into a tight hug. I thought I'd lost you forever, he whispered. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, Papa, Victoria said softly. But it had to be done this way. You're the strongest woman I've ever known, her father said proudly. Just like your mother. Victoria turned to face the board. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. And Harrison Industries will be stronger than ever. The trial began 3 weeks later at the Lagos High Court. The courtroom was packed with journalists, photographers, and curious citizens. Everyone in Nigeria wanted to see what would happen to the husband who tried to murder his billionaire wife. Victoria sat in the front row, her pregnant belly now much bigger. Barrister Michael sat beside her, along with Detective Paul and Mr. Tony, the private investigator. The prosecution presented their case with devastating precision. They played the video of Daniel and Rachel pushing Victoria off the yacht. They played the audio recordings of them planning the murder. They showed the bank statements proving the embezzlement. Daniel's lawyers tried to argue that the video was edited, that the audio was fake, that the embezzlement was just poor bookkeeping. But every argument fell apart under the weight of evidence. Rachel's lawyers tried a different approach. They claimed she was manipulated by Daniel, that she was just following his orders, that she deserved mercy. But when the prosecution played recordings of Rachel laughing as Victoria hit the water, that argument died too. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Witness after witness testified. Expert after expert confirmed the evidence was real and untampered. Finally, the judge called for closing arguments. The prosecutor stood up, looking directly at Daniel and Rachel. These two people planned a cold-blooded murder. They didn't just want to kill Victoria Harrison. They wanted to kill her unborn baby. They wanted to steal her company and her fortune. They showed no mercy, no conscience, and no remorse. They deserved the maximum punishment under the law. The defense lawyers made their final pleas, but everyone in the courtroom could see it was hopeless. The judge left to consider his verdict. He returned 30 minutes later. "Will the defendants please rise?" the judge said. Daniel and Rachel stood up, both looking pale and defeated. The judge looked at them with cold eyes. "Daniel Williams and Rachel Okonkwo, this court has found you guilty on all charges. Guilty of attempted murder. Guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty of embezzlement of 73 million naira." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Taking into account the calculated nature of your crimes, the fact that you targeted a pregnant woman, and your complete lack of remorse, I hereby sentence each of you to 50 years in prison without the possibility of parole." Rachel screamed and collapsed. Daniel just stood there, frozen, as if his body had turned to stone. The judge banged his gavel. "Court is adjourned." Officers led Daniel and Rachel away to begin their 50-year sentences. Victoria watched them go, feeling no joy but deep relief. Justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Victoria. She stood tall and spoke clearly. "Today justice was done. Not just for me but for every person who has ever been betrayed by someone they loved and trusted. My message is simple. When someone tries to destroy you, don't react with emotions. React with evidence, with law, and with strategy. Protect yourself legally. Document everything. And let justice do its work." Months passed. Victoria gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. She held her daughter in her arms and felt complete peace. Harrison Industries grew stronger than ever under Victoria's leadership. Her father helped her manage the company while she recovered from childbirth. One evening, Victoria stood by her office window, holding her baby, looking out at the lights of Lagos. She thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fear, the plan, the victory. She had learned the most important lesson of her life. Betrayal doesn't require revenge. It requires strategy, documentation, and smart legal protection. Not emotional reactions but calculated moves. Daniel and Rachel had thought they could take everything from her. They thought she was weak. They thought she would die quietly in the ocean. But they were wrong. And now they would spend the next 50 years remembering just how wrong they were. Victoria kissed her daughter's forehead and smiled. Her comeback wasn't just about survival. It was about showing the world that intelligence, patience, and proper planning will always defeat evil schemes. And that was a lesson worth teaching. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?